the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. The best and brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes. We'll talk to them all, and we'll get the good, the bad, and the ugly on how they made it. Decoding the secrets of success. And now your host, Terry Barr.
Welcome back to Grind to Growth to Greatness. I'm Terry Barr, your host. And as you know, we have a variety of different guests. And today we have a wonderful guest. I've yet to meet her in person, but she's everywhere. I've seen her everywhere. And what she's doing for the community is all around. So we're so excited to have her. I think you're going to find this to be uplifting. It's going to be somewhat emotional. It was for me when I learned more about the story. But I think there's lots that we can draw from it and be encouraged by. So my guest today is Julie Walker. She is the founder of the Peyton Walker Foundation. And the Peyton Walker Foundation is a foundation that I'm going to let her talk to you about and what she does. But her story, generally speaking, is a few years ago, her daughter Peyton, which the foundation is named after, died suddenly at college, away at college, of sudden cardiac arrest. And that was the catalyst for Julie and her family to start the foundation and thrust her into the community service, if you will. And she's done so much for our community. So I want to welcome her in. Julie, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it. I know you've done this many times, but I'm thankful that you're here again. And we can't wait to dive in and hear more about what you're all about.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Terry. I look forward to our conversation.
Well, great. So like I said, Julie, your daughter was a beautiful, vibrant young lady that was full of life. And if you read some of the things that we have read about her, she was a very, very much an outdoorsy person, an adventurer, and took on a lot of what life had to offer. Can you tell me a little bit about her as a young lady growing up before the period of time in college that we're all talking about? Tell me a little bit about your daughter.
Peyton was definitely this magnet that people were drawn to. She had this didn't care attitude. And, I always admired that about her. Kids growing up are always so worried about what everyone thinks about them, but she always just lived life on her terms, which I thought was phenomenal. It's really hard for kids to do that and without apology. And, larger than life. Like she just always entered a room and just had this bundle of energy around her at all times and always had the story to tell. Like she just was a master storyteller. I don't know why crazy things always happened to Peyton or around Peyton, but just always had funny things happening to her. Very sassy, very snarky, a very inappropriate sense of humor from my perspective. I was like, you are too young to have that sense of humor, and just loved anything dangerous. She and her dad would go four-wheeling in her Jeep all the time. She'd get it as muddy as can be, wrecking the thing. And then, he would spend the time fixing it back up and they'd go right back out on the trails and do it all over again. She worked at Round Top in pretty much every capacity, all season, every season, all year long. Just a fun-loving kid. And I honestly believe it's like her spirit knew, hey, you've got a short window. Yeah. Let's make the best of this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, that was one of my questions, that where did she get that adventurous spirit? But it sounds like her dad was your husband, Norm, right? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
He was the one that kind of passed down along that adventurous spirit. Is that right?
Well, I think she pushed us a little bit. Like she did, she enjoyed rock climbing and all kinds of stuff that we never got involved in. She did. She did take him snowboarding up at Round Top one time, and he still has a crooked, broken finger as a forever reminder of that trip. She tried to teach him how to snowboard. So she definitely pushed us outside of our comfort zone, without a doubt.
How about that? Well, I know that she went away to college, at King's College up in, I guess that's up near Scranton, up that way, yeah. Wilkes-Barre. And she was studying in the medical field. She's going to be a PA. Is that right? Yep.
Correct. She wanted to be a physician assistant and work in health.
Well, I guess I don't want to belabor it, but I want to tell the story a little bit about what happened to your daughter that day. So I want to take you back to that day? I know it was an emotional thing for you. It probably still is, of course. But could you give me a little taste of what that day looked like for you folks when you got the call from the school?
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember it like it was 2 hours ago. And it was 10 years ago. My husband and I, it was this perfect Saturday fall morning, November 2nd, 2013. Perfect morning. The weather was gorgeous. I had just sat down at my kitchen table to have breakfast, warm cup of coffee in my hand. I was just made pumpkin walnut pancakes. It smelled amazing. And I looked out the window and I was like, wow, it is gorgeous out today. And the leaves were this bright yellow in my backyard and this blue sky, not a cloud to be seen. And I'm so glad though that I had that moment to appreciate this is perfect. So nice. And then my husband's phone rang, his cell phone. And I said, why don't you grab that real quick? I know we're going to have breakfast, but why don't you just grab that? And thank God he did. It was the president of King's College calling to say that our daughter had just been taken by ambulance to Wilkes-Barre Hospital. So we were reeling, like we just didn't even know what the heck to think. Well, of course, as a parent of a college student on a weekend, who, finding this out, we're thinking, was she out drinking last night? What did she do? What is going on? So we're thinking it's just some little minor thing. So we decide, we've got to start getting dressed and getting up to Wilkes-Barre. And then our phone rang again. And this time it was a nurse from the emergency department calling to say that our daughter had just been brought in to the ER in full cardiac arrest. And that got our attention pretty quick. I mean, we didn't even know what that meant. Like, what? She's in cardiac arrest. She's 19. How is that even possible? So she said, please get here as quickly, but as safely as you can. Yeah. And then my husband did have the wherewithal to say, is she breathing? And the nurse said, no, I'm sorry, she's not, but we're working on her. Yeah. And that's that, oh crap moment. Yeah. Like, oh my God, how, like you're paralyzed, but you've got to go. You got to go. So we got our son up, he's a teenager at the time too, at a dead sleep. We're like, get in the car. We're going to Wilkes-Barre. So to make that drive, like you don't want to get there, but you want to get there. And as we pulled into the parking lot at the hospital, I looked over and I saw two priests standing in the emergency room waiting area. And like, that's the moment, you're like, oh my God. So I sat in the car, my hand is on the handle to open it up. And I'm like, how do I open this handle and open the door and go face hell on earth? Like, I don't want to do this. How can I possibly do this? I was also on crutches at the time. I had a broken foot. So that complicated things. But as I'm getting out of the car, I realized, oh my God, I didn't put a shoe on my other foot. I didn't put a jacket on, because I just was out of my mind when we left. So we go into the ER and the nurse points at me and she says, we need you to go in that room. And I just started crying. I'm like, don't put me in a room. Please don't put me in a room. I want to see my daughter. Right. And it's just like your worst nightmare is unfolding. And it's like this out of body experience. It's horrible. We go into the room and the doctors come in, and this is something that I will never get past. The doctors came in and they talked to my husband, not to me. And they surrounded him, and I'm just sitting there like, am I part of this conversation? This is my daughter. And they did tell us the news that we had lost our daughter to sudden cardiac arrest that day. We didn't get to say goodbye. Never in a million years thought as I'm sitting there having coffee saying what a beautiful morning it is. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, now I have to plan a funeral. So that's how quickly life changes on a dime. Yeah.
Now I read a little bit about you online and, all the public things that I could find on you. But one of the things that struck me is that you said that you had some heart conditions in the family. And I was curious to know, did she have a heart condition that you knew about? Was that something that played a part in her situation?
Well, so we come at this. I've met so many families who have also lost their children to sudden cardiac arrest since we've lost Peyton. And our story is really different. I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy when I was in my late 20s. Okay. And once they found it in me, because it's a genetic heart condition, they started checking my children. So the kids were screened. And then when Peyton was in 5th grade, it did show up. Yeah. So she was starting to develop this cardiomyopathy. We took her to Boston Children's Hospital. She was seen by one of the top doctors in the country for this particular heart condition. So from 5th grade on, we knew this is what we had. And, here's me though, but I'm living my life with the same heart condition. I'm on meds, limited activities in some regard. And same with her. They put her on medication. Right. They told her that after middle school, no more sports. She couldn't play sports. She was followed locally. So we thought, okay, everything's great. It's fine. Never, ever in a million years did I think this was going to be the outcome, that we were going to get this call and our lives were going to be changed forever. My dad had the heart issue as well, ended up getting a heart transplant. So definitely a genetic issue. Beyond him, we're not aware of anyone else in the family that has it.
Okay.
And my other kids have been checked and they don't have it. So
did the doctors did they give you an idea that, this could be part and parcel to the reason she had sudden cardiac arrest? I mean, some of the statistics I read on your website, one child or one kid dies every hour of every day of this sudden cardiac arrest. That was a shocking number for me. I mean, you hear about great athletes that die on the field or great athletes that have, it's always a big name or a sport, but to read that one out of every hour of every day died of this was very shocking to me. It was eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a startling statistic. So definitely Peyton's heart condition is the root cause of cardiac arrest.
Okay.
The cardiac arrest. So it is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is one of the leading heart conditions that causes cardiac arrest. So definite correlation there.
Gotcha.
And to your point on this statistic, I mean, we equate this, think of this, if 20 kids or 25 kids a day were shot and killed in a classroom, oh my gosh, that would be all over the news. Why, when we're losing the same number of kids every day to cardiac arrest, it's radio silence. People don't report this. And it's so it's just swept under the carpet, nothing to see here. There's nothing going on. And that's why we constantly advocate for standardization of heart screenings. We say every kid should get an electrocardiogram because an electrocardiogram can really tell so much about what's going on inside of a kiddo's heart. And we're not doing it. Yeah. You think about mammograms or standard of care, prostate check, all this stuff is standard and we can't give a kid an electrocardiogram. We're more focused on, when we do sports physicals or whatever, we're checking for hernias. Well, a hernia is not going to cause a child to drop over dead.
Sure.
So I get on my soapbox about the whole screening thing. It is a startling statistic, 20 to 25 kids a day. And we don't even know that that's an accurate number because there's not a really good database.
So that, I guess that leads me to my next question. If you understand that there's 25 kids a day that are dying and that they're kids. And so maybe the issue is, well, it was unexpected. We're really not sure why they died. And so therefore they don't end up maybe going down that road to find out why they died. I don't know. You would think in today's society with the medical advances that we're capable of, that would be an easy thing. Okay, we had this 15-year-old die on the field. Now, why did he die? What were the root causes? And now we've got 25 a day, and you extrapolate that out to the year. That's a lot. That's a lot of kids. So I'm curious to know what you think the barriers are to get people to stand up and listen or stand up and take this seriously, because this is not something that just happens yesterday or today. It's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. And think about, so if we're losing 25 kids a day, think about the ripple effect of that on families, friends, communities, schools. It's not just the kid that we're losing. It's incredibly impactful. Yeah. I think that one of the biggest barriers is healthcare system, medical profession. They say, oh, we don't have enough doctors or pediatric cardiologists to handle the workload of screening every kid in advance and looking for these hidden heart issues. And sometimes the medical community says, well, you know what? Instead of trying to find potential hidden issues, maybe we're better off making sure we have AEDs or defibrillators in place in case somebody goes into cardiac arrest and we can save them. Kind of a totally backwards approach, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me. I can't take on the giants of healthcare to affect change. We got a law passed in 2020, Peyton's Law, but it's not enough. It doesn't require and mandate heart screenings for kids. It just suggests them. So we're making progress, but it's not where it needs to be.
Yeah. And it was interesting, the more I read about what you were doing, that if we had these AEDs in place, that they do save lives, and they work within a certain period of time. So the more we have, the better off we have. That seems very cost effective to be able to respond to something like this that's so catastrophic in a short amount of time with a piece of equipment that if the average person is, I say average person, the person is trained on it, that this could save a lot of lives. So it is kind of, you can't do that with cancer. You can't do that with strokes. You can't do that with a lot of things that you have to go to the doctor. But gosh, this is a way that we can facilitate saving lives if we have these pieces in place. So it was interesting to see that they actually work and they actually save lives, and you have stories to back that up, even within your own foundation. People have said, hey, my uncle was saved by one of your devices. That's pretty amazing. And I want to get into your story a little bit about that, obviously, but what you're doing is saying, okay, we can't fight the big folks, but we can certainly go around the back door and try to save lives when people are in trouble. So I think that's a pretty amazing thing.
Well, and here's something that hopefully this is an impactful demonstration. Right. Everybody has one of these.
Yeah.
This is less expensive than these AEDs.
Yep.
We are putting our money in the wrong place. Like, people need to stop and think. We're making sure all of our kids have the best technology at their fingertips, but we're overlooking the fact that AEDs aren't readily accessible. We've got it backwards.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit. When Peyton passed, and the emotions, you never get over that. I can't imagine. I can't even fathom losing a child. But when the emotions settle and there's a point where you say, okay, I've got to do something to either cope with my distress, cope with my misery, or whatever you called it. How did you flip the switch from, all right, I've lost my child, this beautiful young lady, it's devastating, our family's reeling. How did you turn that into, I've got to do something so that this doesn't happen to another family? Because I know a lot of people, you lose a child and people go into depression for years and sometimes never come out. How did you flip that switch, you personally, and then again as your family, to cope with this type of thing?
Well, I'll start with this. So driving home from Wilkes-Barre that night, horrible. But I said to my husband, I really hope this doesn't destroy our marriage. And he said, my God, of all the things on your mind and everything we're dealing with right now, that's what you're worried about? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and the reason that was forefront on my mind, I went through losing a sibling. I was 15. My brother was 19 and died from leukemia.
Oh my goodness.
So I've been through, that was my warm up, that unfortunately. So I've been through a major, major loss.
Yeah.
I learned then you got to keep going. Like, life does not stop. The world keeps turning.
Right.
You got to keep going. So, and I also watched it completely, my entire family imploded. So I watched that happen firsthand.
Yeah, that was a lot of my questions. I mean, my questions are, based upon that in particular. I didn't know that about your brother, and for you to call it a warm up is I'm sure it's a way to cope with it. But I can't imagine that. I mean, on the one side, you're turning this into this wonderful foundation that's doing so much for so many in our community, in colleges and high schools and middle schools and all those things. But how does your family deal with it? Like, how is the rest of your family dealing with it? You and your husband, do you spend time talking about this on a regular, as far as how it affects your marriage and then your kids and so on and so forth?
Well, we made the decision together to do something. And my husband and I are complete opposite personality-wise. I'm very outspoken, vocal. I'll talk about Peyton's death, and this has become my number one passion and my true purpose and calling in life.
Yep. He
is happy to help in any way, move boxes, put together technology. Will not talk to anyone about this. So, do not ask him a question.
Wow.
He will not stand at an information table and share stories or whatever. It's so personal to him.
Sure.
And that's fine. And I think that's one of the most important things that has helped to save our marriage and keep it together. You have to honor each other's way of grieving. I can't tell him, hey, you're doing this wrong. this isn't my way, whatever, you have to do it my way. No, you have to respect and honor each other's individual way. And there's no right way or wrong way. And that's what makes me crazy. I'm a logistics freak. I want to check the box. I want to be done with this and move on. But there's no completion of grief. There's no finish date.
And I think this is a good point to kind of like highlight that everybody goes through some sort of grief. And it's a good point that you can't force the way you deal with your grief on someone else and vice versa. But I think it's a good statement that you're talking about. We've all got to deal with things at our own speed and the way we do things. Now, when you guys are together, you and your husband, do you find other ways to just coexist together and to be together, or does the foundation come up, or do you guys talk about that on off hours, if you will, or do you really try to split away time for each other to not be in that foundation zone, if you will? Like, how do you deal relationally?
Yeah. My husband is a really brilliant businessman. So I'm an entrepreneur as well. So I will bounce a lot of things off of him. Running this whole nonprofit, this is all new world to me. So we're kind of making it up as we're going. I say we're building the plane as we're flying. Yeah. So we have a lot of like business conversations about what do you think I should do about this, or strategy. Right. That's a lot of it. And the thing is too, we're both so emotionally tied to this. So I think he's better at taking the emotion out and thinking very analytically about a lot of the issues. But I think there's times too. It's funny. I have so much apparel that says Peyton Walker Foundation, shirts and sweatshirts and jackets and whatever. And then sometimes on the weekend, I'm like, no, I am not wearing that today. And I just feel like I need the break. I don't want to be Peyton Walker Foundation today. I just want to be me. I want to be Julie. I want to be Norm's wife. So I am conscientious about creating that time where this is not Peyton Walker Foundation moment. This is us. Let's go do something. Yeah,
that's great. I think that'd be overwhelming at some point. I mean, what you're doing is great and everybody wants to hear about it and everybody wants to be involved in it. But you've got to have a personal life as well.
This episode of Grind to Growth to Greatness is brought to you by Terry Barr, Distinctive Real Estate, advising families across Pennsylvania and Northern Virginia for over 15 years. Visit the website at terrybarrealestate.com.
That kind of brings me to I know you've got two other children, Dominic and Devin, and they're great kids in their own right and very different. And so how do they deal with the loss of their sibling, the loss of Peyton? They were younger, obviously, but how do they get along with their grief and then what you're doing?
Well, honestly, very sadly, our family has become 4 islands as far as the grief and dealing with the loss of their sister or our daughter. And it's how we've coped. I don't think we've done it well. And it's so important. Give yourself some grace. And I say that all the time. Yeah. Give yourself some grace. There's no handbook. You're doing the best you can do. Yeah. And, you're just trying to fight and claw your way to survival. And it's been extremely difficult to be that lifeline to the kids as well. And I even remember one day I was sitting at the kitchen table crying, and I was kind of leaning forward in my chair, and my son kind of got behind me, sat down in the chair, and just wrapped himself around me. And I said, Dominic, it's not your job to take care of me. Yeah. He's like, but Mom, I love you. I want you to be okay. Yeah. So he felt that like he had to step in and comfort me. My kids are more like my husband. They're very, they keep their emotions close to the chest. We'll talk about Peyton and they'll bring her up, but we don't really talk about how are you feeling. We don't talk about the feelings so much. Yeah. We talk a little bit about the foundation. They really don't get super involved in the foundation. It's kind of my passion, my thing. And I don't think they resent it, but they just don't feel compelled to get involved. And I certainly would never force it on them or demand, you need to come and do this. It's totally up to them. Yeah. It's their private moment too. They don't have to share their pain and grief with the world. Yeah.
And I'm happy that you talked about it like that, because I think so many people that would look at a person like yourself that has turned this grief into this great service to the community. And of course, that's what I think when I look at the Peyton Walker Foundation and you, and I get this eye level view of everything. And yet you're sharing like we don't know how to do it. We're still working on it. It's not, it's not a year down the road and everybody's great. It's a daily thing. And I think that'll be helpful to people to hear. I can do some great things in my life and I can still live and I can still have my job and my family, but I don't have to be okay today if I'm not. I can work towards that. And I think that's what's so nice to hear you say. And I guess nice is the wrong word, but encouraging to other people that can say, I don't have to be right today. I mean, she has done great things, but you can still hear that she struggles with it. She still thinks about it and her family still thinks about it. So I appreciate that approach to sharing your feelings about it. And now your family, it breaks my heart that you have 4 islands, but the bottom line is everybody's dealing with it on their own time and their own schedule. And I can appreciate that.
Well, and people will say, I need some advice. No, I'm not going to, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. And I think and we don't talk about death and dying enough in our society.
True.
It's especially child loss. Like when you lose a child, it is so polarizing and isolating. You cannot imagine. Everyone is so uncomfortable around you.
Yeah.
And we need to make that. We need to talk. I'm glad we're having the conversation because we need to talk about it more. So, but I never tell people, well, you need to do this. Like, this is how you grieve. No, there's not a right or wrong way, but I always say, give yourself some grace and honor everyone's own way of grieving. Like, you should never tell somebody, you should be over that by now.
Yeah.
Well, who are you to say that?
Yeah.
What do you mean they should be over it by now? Have you lost someone that's, in this situation? So anyway, like it's very personal. Everyone has their own plan for grieving. So
let me ask you a question. Do you think that a part of what the Peyton Walker Foundation is the way you're grieving for your daughter?
Oh, absolutely. It was my survival, Terry. It was the only way I was going to survive is to pour my heart and soul into this.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything less than stellar performance.
Yeah.
So, I've like the Jackie Kennedy, like, okay, we're going to face this head on and we're going to do something absolutely amazing with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This has been a huge way for me to grieve.
Yeah.
And other parents who have lost kids have even come to me and said, oh my God, I could never do what you do. I'm like, you know what? You don't have to.
Right.
Like, don't compare yourself to me because this is my vehicle to pour my grief into.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be your way to do it. Like, there's no right or wrong way. And I feel terrible when people compare themselves to what we've done. Like, don't stop comparing yourself. It's a personal journey. This is not your path. You have something else to do.
Yeah. And I think that's normal. I think the conversation, I've had conversations with people that are cancer survivors and still battling cancer. And we've talked about their personal journeys and how they've come out the other side. And I agree with you. I don't think we talk about death and depression and those kinds of things enough from the approach that, hey, this is a very, very individual thing. It's very, very individual. We can both lose, something in our lives and we're going to respond to it or react to it completely different. And it's a conversation that needs to be had. And people like you that are able to do something grand, bigger than yourself, because it's part of your grief, are the people that, people want to hear about. They want to hear from you. They want to hear you say the things that you're saying. And I so appreciate that what you're willing to do. You're willing to come out and say, hey, I'm not perfect. This is me. You don't have to do this, but this is how I cope with life every day. So I appreciate that. So I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your foundation. A lot of people have heard about the foundation. I know you just went through some rebranding. I love your new logo. It's a beautiful logo. I wore purple in your honor because I know that you got a lot of purple work in there. So I went out and made sure I had some purple on today. But tell me about your foundation. We know how it started, why it started, but tell me where you started. Tell me you've come a long way. Tell me a little bit about it, what you do, what you provide for the community, how people can get involved.
So what started the foundation was born out of what Peyton was wearing the day she died.
Yeah.
So when we left the hospital in Wilkes-Barre, the nurse handed me a bag of Peyton's clothing, and that sat on my living room floor. And I've told the story so many times, but it sat on my living room floor for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And finally, I decided, well, I'm just going to open this up. And I opened up the bag and I pulled out this red long sleeve T-shirt. This is the shirt my daughter was wearing when she passed away. And as I read it, every hair in my body stood on end. It said on the T-shirt, what we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others and the world remains and is immortal. So Peyton, in true Peyton fashion, she was infamous for always having the last word. It was like, oh my God, if that's not a message and an inspiration, I don't know what is. Like, here's this kid dies and has this T-shirt on. Obviously, we're supposed to do something with this. And that's the first conversation my husband and I had, like, oh my God, we have got to do something with this. We have to figure out a way to save other families from this heartache. So, like I said, when we got the call, your daughter's in cardiac arrest, what the heck does that mean? So we just got to work and I learned everything I could about sudden cardiac arrest. What is it? How prevalent is it? And I could not believe the statistics that we were finding. It was astounding. And we just kind of peeled back all of that information and said, how can we be most impactful?
Right.
And so we knew it was heart screenings, CPR training, and AED donations. And if we can figure out these 3 pillars of service and just really make an impactful difference, we know we're going to save lives. And so I laugh. I have my rose-colored glasses and I laugh at what I didn't know. I didn't know how to go approach healthcare systems. I just go barging into UPMC. I'm a patient. I've got my heart issue. So I'm already a patient at UPMC. And I just go in and like, hey, I want to do heart screenings and I need you to support us.
Right.
And I don't know how to navigate a healthcare system. I don't know that it normally takes like 2 to 3 years for any decision to be made.
Right.
So boom, I just go in and then they're like, sure, we'll do a heart screening. So I don't have any appreciation for the fact that I just saved 3 years of decision making.
Amazing.
It was pretty cool. And then I did the same at Penn State Health and WellSpan and Geisinger, all these healthcare systems we have partnering with us, which is an amazing feat, unbeknownst to me, that we were able to pull this off. So we go into the community. We've screened 5,000 kids, I think, so far. I wish it was, quadruple that number, but we're chipping away at it.
Sure.
Provide these free heart screenings. And we're looking for the hidden heart issues that can lead to cardiac arrest. So it's been unbelievable what we have found. And everyone that comes to the screening from a medical perspective, every provider, every echo tech, EKG tech, nurse, they're all like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're so thankful to be part of this. And then on the flip side, every parent and kid that comes through, they're like, wow, this was so cool. Thank you so much. And it's free, absolutely free. And we know we have found kids with potentially life-threatening heart issues that had no idea they had it otherwise. So that's been wildly successful.
Are you getting great response from the institutions themselves? I know you've been to Penn State, you've been to schools, you've been to little leagues, you've been to these kind of places. What's the response been from the organizational side of things?
Well, everybody thinks it's a great idea. Heart screenings, yay, rah, rah, let's do them. But moving the needle on, okay, especially the healthcare systems, like, hey, let's pick a date, let's get the docs, it's the execution is the more challenging part. Right. And it's an enormous undertaking. We get requests, from this baseball team or this gym or whatever. Oh, we want you to come do a heart screening. I don't think it's widely understood what an enormous undertaking it is for us to go in and do a heart screening. It's 40 to 60 medical professionals, 50 to 70 volunteers. We're unloading equipment the night before, setting up. And it's a huge operational and logistics event to take place. So it's a big undertaking.
Yeah. Is that something that somebody's helping you with these screenings, like the medical professions coming in with equipment and other things, or are these tools that you have that you do those with your group?
So we have most of our own equipment at this point. We have a trailer that we actually tow into the event, set everything up. It's an enormous undertaking, and it's a big deal. And I don't think the community, a lot of people they walk in and they're shocked at the setup. Yeah. We've got tents with medical tables set up. We've got our own electrocardiogram machines. Wow. The hospital systems typically will provide the echocardiogram machines. They're really expensive. So we have not had funds available to purchase those yet. Mm-hmm. But we are self-sufficient other than the echocardiogram machines. We bring everything in and do a really comprehensive check on these kiddos. That's
amazing. I know I had the opportunity not too long ago. It's actually how I got connected to you through Ann Dieter Gallagher. I was at the Cornerstone Coffee House. We all love Cornerstone. We all love Sue Para. So I was.
Yes, we do.
I was
free advertisement. Yes.
Yes, sir. Go to Cornerstone Coffee House. My wife loves it there too. So, but I was over there and you were having a class, if you will. They moved some of the tables and they were showing about how to do CPR. And so I participated in one of those. I had done that for many, many years, but even the tools that you had there, you had 5 or 6 of the system, must have been very expensive, but you had, volunteers showing how to do it and going through a class all day. So even in that little setting, it struck me that this is this is an expense that is pretty great.
For sure. And we continue to add, we've got more and more mannequins, more and more AED defibrillator trainers. So we're pretty well stocked. We're going to continue to expand what we're able to do CPR wise. But when we go out in the community and we do demonstrations, and this is why we do it. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were at the Giant Center and somebody came by, learned CPR. We also frequently teach the Heimlich maneuver and what to do in case someone's choking. So somebody learned that at our event on a Thursday night. On Friday morning, she saved her son who was choking because we taught her the Heimlich maneuver the night before.
Yeah.
And then the next day, we get a phone call, a voicemail message from someone who had come to one of our CPR classes, and she is sobbing, like just saying, I'm so thankful to Peyton Walker Foundation. I'm so thankful for Peyton's life. I just saved my pastor because of the CPR I learned from you. And it gives me goosebumps talking about it, like knowing, oh my gosh, here in 48 hours, 2 lives, or actually 24 hours, 2 lives were saved because of the work we're doing. And that is, I can't even tell you how powerful that is. And I say all the time, grief and gratitude can coexist. And although I am so heartbroken and destroyed and devastated over the loss of my daughter, I will also say my life is infinitely better today. Yeah. Because of all of the gifts that have come with this grief. And through CPR training, we've saved lives. Through our heart screenings, we've saved lives. And then we get on to the discussion of the AEDs, the defibrillators that we've put out. We've put out 600 in the community.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, several of them have been used to save a life. We have a brand new program in Cumberland County where we put 300 of these small AEDs that are connected to the 911 center. We have given them away to 300 to residents in Cumberland County. And we just ask, like, hey, if you get an alert on your phone or on your device that there's a cardiac arrest nearby, please go respond. So we've had people responding to cardiac arrest alerts that are sent out by the 911 center free. So if anyone lives in Cumberland County and you're listening, we still have about 40 AEDs available to deploy out into the community. If you're willing to be part of the 4-Minute City, reach out to Peyton Walker Foundation. Let us know. But we're one of 3 cities in the country, in the United States of America. Cumberland County is a forefront, like major trailblazer in this whole thing. It's insane.
Yeah, that's what my next question was, the 4-Minute City, according to your website, and then obviously in coordination with what you do. I guess your goal is to have somebody within 4 minutes everywhere in the county. Is that what 4-Minute City means?
Well, that's the goal. So the first 4 minutes, every minute that passes when someone's in cardiac arrest, every minute their chance of survival decreases by 10%. Gotcha. So if you can get an AED, if you can get somebody on that victim doing CPR and getting an AED on them to help save them within 4 minutes, that is fantastic. Yeah. And we say within 4 minutes of making the call to the 911 center. So like I said, we've already had people who have gotten on scene before EMS arrived. They've performed CPR. They've helped get an AED on a victim. So it's working. The plan is working, and we're just getting started. And we know out of the 3 counties, we know Cumberland County, the 911 operators are doing a tremendous job. They're sending out the alerts. They're getting the information out to these devices. So kudos to the 911 operators. They never get enough recognition, but they're the critical piece to this. If they don't push the button and send out the alert, we can't respond.
So I guess that leads me to another question, and it's more of a technical question, but I know medical professionals, doctors, nurses, whatever, they all have insurance. I mean, how do you get around the idea of somebody having a piece of equipment that's considered medical or life-saving that did something maybe that they shouldn't have or caused something more than helped? I mean, how does that play into, I want one of these AEDs because I want to be part of your system. How am I covered insurance-wise? Is that something that you is a need or is a problem?
2 words: Good Samaritan. So thankfully, the Good Samaritan law is in place, and as long as you are not willfully mistreating somebody or throwing the AED at them and trying to cause harm or bodily injury, if you are making a conscientious effort to assist in any way, you are completely covered. There's no liability, no risk whatsoever. Wow. So Good Samaritan protects everybody unless you are willfully, intentionally trying to hurt someone.
So you folks listening out there, if you have an interest in this, and maybe you're a retired nurse, you're a nurse right now, or you're somebody that has just wants to help people, you can reach out to this organization and they can tell you how to get one of these AEDs that can help save lives. So I appreciate you telling me about that, because that was an interesting part of what you do. So what's next for the Peyton Walker Foundation? Are you out of energy yet? Are you recharged and ready to go? Tell me what your plans are.
Yeah, I am getting a little tired, I will be honest, but we're down a staff member right now, but we're hoping to get staffed up. And then I feel like we are on this incredible trajectory and just about to really completely take off. I am so excited.
Yeah.
So we're also right now, DeMar Hamlin incident, when he went down on the football field last January. Yep. Even if you weren't a football fan, you saw the video. Everyone has seen the video of DeMar Hamlin going down in cardiac arrest.
Yep.
And how he was saved. It was CPR and it was an AED that saved his life.
Yep.
And thank God, he had a great outcome. So everybody seems to be aware of that. But after that happened, I thought, okay, we got to do something bigger, because outside of central Pennsylvania, the name Peyton Walker doesn't really resonate. It doesn't mean much to people.
Right.
So I thought, well, we've got to start a new initiative, rebrand, or do something that we can make a national impact. Yeah. So we came up with Huddle for Hearts. And what Huddle for Hearts is partnering with athletes and having them use their platforms. They've got huge social media followings for whatever reason. Some of them justified, some of them not so much. Yeah. But how can we partner with athletes at high school level, collegiate level, professional level, and have them share information about sudden cardiac arrest? What are the signs and symptoms? How do you treat cardiac arrest? Why you should learn CPR? So just think that the messaging is infinite. Yep. So we're starting this Huddle for Hearts program. We've had some great partnerships so far. We did some at Trinity High School locally, like with the football team, the wrestling team. We've partnered with Penn State University. We've got a couple of the women athletes coming on board for it. Yep. University of Tennessee. So we're growing this program, and I can just feel it in my bones. It is about to just completely take off. So Huddle for Hearts hopefully will have a national impact, and we want to get AEDs donated back into especially underserved youth sports organizations. Like, think about the inner city kids that don't have access to AEDs. So that's kind of the offshoot of this program, is not only education and awareness, but let's get this life-saving equipment out to these fields. And also let's teach CPR everywhere, to the teams, everywhere we can get. We want to do CPR education and awareness.
That's awesome. Tell me about the AEDs in particular. I know Cornerstone has one on their wall outside. I've seen that there before. How safe are they for the general public? Obviously, unless I go open one and mess with it, I'm not going to, it's like in some people's eyes, it's like a gun. If you put a gun on the table, as long as you don't touch it, you shoot yourself.
When you open it up, it will immediately start telling you very calmly and slowly exactly what to do. It'll say, press the on button, pull the pad, place the pad, stop doing CPR. It's very slow and methodical. So you can't mess it up. An AED cannot hurt someone unless you throw it at them. But somebody can't be shocked. And that's, people are always afraid that kids are going to mess around with them and they'll stick the pads on and they'll shock somebody. You can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. It will not deliver a shock to someone who does not need to be shocked.
That was my question.
So it is looking for a shockable rhythm. When you put those 2 pads on the chest, it is looking for a shockable rhythm. And when it finds it, it'll deliver the shock. So the goal is to stop the heart. Usually when someone's in cardiac arrest, the heart might just be kind of quivering around in there. And this shock will stop the heart, and hopefully the heart restarts in a normal rhythm. Anyone can use an AED. We just donated an outdoor save station cabinet, very similar to the one that's at Cornerstone Coffee House. I think it's our 4th cabinet that we've donated. So it makes an AED available outside 24/7, 365. So anyone can have access to it in the community, get it when it's needed, and save a life. And one of ours one of our Safe Station AEDs was used last year to save a life down at Mount Gretna. It was publicly available, thank goodness, and someone was able to get it and use it and save a grandfather at the Jigger Shop.
Well, I imagine that Sue had something to do with getting that into Mount Gretna. I think she lives down there. But anyway, well, that's really interesting because I did have those questions on the actual AED themselves. I was on your Facebook and some of your social media, and I see you folks vacation and do some things together. And any other people, I kind of thought, that's a nice vacation. But I imagine getting away and doing things together is something that really helps you guys reconnect as a family. And I at least enjoyed looking at those pictures, seeing where you're, going and looking happy and so to speak. But I usually ask a couple other questions at the end. Are you a reader?
I go in and out of cycles of that. It depends. But right now I'm definitely on this big podcast kick, and I'm enjoying some of the podcasts. Mel Robbins, just absolutely love her podcast. So I've really been enjoying that and trying to get into this whole new world of podcasts. So I'm thrilled to be part of this today, and maybe somebody will listen and find some great nuggets of takeaway information. But that's kind of where, my spare time, I'm just kicking on the podcast and listening to that.
I do a lot of that. I'm in the car all the time. I sell real estate in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. So I'm an Audible. I'm listening to books. I'm listening to podcasts. It's really become a way for me to re-educate myself and get myself out there as far as my education. So I really appreciate that. Enjoy that. But I appreciate you coming on. It would be difficult for me to go through what you've gone through and to tell the story over and over and over again. But yet I know there's people out there that are going to get a lot from listening to you and how you've talked about your tragedy in your life and how you've thrown yourself into your grief, and it's become something fantastic. I really appreciate all you're doing for the community. I've already talked to our manager. I'm hoping that at some point we can maybe reach out and put one of your Save a Life boxes on our building. We have about 300 agents there, and we'd love to be involved with that. Thanks for turning your tragedy into something that's meaningful for our community. I appreciate that. So you know where to go. Go to @Peyton Walker Foundation. Look her up. You can do it today. You can go figure out CPR. She's got all the tools you need. You may save a life tomorrow.
I can't reiterate enough. Learn CPR. We've got a video on our website. It takes 2 minutes to watch. Watch it, learn it, get comfortable with it, and then share that video with somebody else. So let's get this whole culture of responsiveness going and save some more lives.
That's awesome. So go to our foundation and check her out. What a great lady. We've had a great time. And tune in next week I've got a super guest next week, and you're going to love this guest. So you have to tune in every Tuesday on my podcast, Grind to Growth to Greatness. We'll see you then. Be good.
You've been listening to the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. Our passion is to talk to the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes, anyone who's made it, and dive into their struggles, their successes, and their secrets. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Grind to Growth to Greatness. See you next time.